Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to be rating and analysing the faces of various dating coaches and advice gurus who feature on YouTube. So you should recognise and be familiar with at least a couple faces I have pictured here, as these are the people I'm going to be rating in this video out of 10. And it might be a good idea to pause the video now and get any predictions you have in the comments below. So we'll start off with this man, Julien Blanc, who most of you will be aware was a former RSD coach, which back in its day, in its prime, was most likely the biggest and most influential dating coaching company. So how attractive was Julien Blanc? Well, for me there are two facial flaws that jump right out. The first of which is the size of his forehead, which quite evidently is on the bigger size. So Julien has a forehead height to width ratio of 2 to 3, when the ideal will be roughly 1 to 2. And having a large forehead is going to be a bit more juvenile and childlike. It can also give the appearance of having a receding hairline. And to me, it appears that Julien is very aware of this flaw and does his best to try to cover it up. For example, in 6 of his 10 most recent videos, he's worn either a hat like this, sometimes at ridiculous times, like this video was filmed at night in the pitch black and he was still wearing this hat, a bandana like this one, or whatever this funny hat is. So I think it is quite evident that he's doing this to cover his forehead. The second flaw, which I think is also quite significant and jumps out at me, is his jaw definition, or lack of thereof. Overall, his jaw just lacks the definition, sharpness, and forward protrusiveness that is needed to give the appearance of being strong and high testosterone. So if we compare to this man's jawline, which is more ideal, it has very clearly defined angles, it's very sharp, and forward grown. So because of these two flaws, I would give Julien a rating of 7 out of 10. He falls right into that Chad-like category. However, I do think it's worth mentioning he is closer to the high tier normie range, a 6 out of 10, than he is to Chad level, an 8. His most attractive facial features are that he has a compact mid-face, so he has the ideal mid-face ratio of 1 to 1, so the distance between his two eyes is the same as the distance between his eyes and his upper lip, and this prevents him from having a horse face. He also has very nice teeth. They are straight, white, with no gaps. Lastly, he also has very nice cheekbones. They are prominent, forward grown, high set, and they give good overall protection and support to the eye area. So overall, I'd place him at a 7 out of 10. As for looks maxing, there are a few things that need to be discussed. In my opinion, the main purpose of looks maxing is to cover up as much as possible any flaws you have, and to accentuate your best features. So firstly, taking a look at his beard. I actually like this. His thick stubble does a good job of covering up his lack of jaw definition, and overall it masculinizes his face. So I'd keep that. As for his choice of style, I've noticed that he often wears baggy or loose clothing, and I would guess that he does this because his frame is a bit on the narrower side. So wearing this oversized clothing does do quite a good job of smoothing out his skinnier edges and bulking him up a bit more. So I would keep that too. And lastly for Julien, we have to discuss the hat situation. Like, I get it, most of the time it probably does do a good job of covering up your forehead, but in my opinion, this has been taken to the extreme. I mean, when it gets to the point of wearing a hat for indoor seminars, or outside when it's pitch black, then in my opinion, that's only going to make you look more ridiculous. There's quite obviously a time and a place for when it's appropriate to wear a hat. And the last piece of looks maxing advice I have is that he should try bulking out a bit more. Start lifting heavy weights, be in a calorific surplus, and it would also be a good idea to start taking creatine powder, as that would make your muscles swell out more and bring you close to that ideal body shape. So overall, still a 7. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree and what you think of the looks maxing advice that I gave. Also, now I've got the first person out the way, now is a good time to press a like button at the video as it helps the YouTube algorithm. Also, I just want to throw this disclaimer out there quickly, and that is I don't mean to offend or discriminate anyone mentioned in this video, or any future videos if I decide to turn this into a series for that matter. This is for entertainment purposes only, and I hope you can take something from these videos, especially with regard to the looks maxing advice. And besides, the people I'm rating in this video are supposed to be their own champions of masculinity, embracing their alphaness and being confident in their own skin and with their flaws. So I shouldn't have to worry about this being an issue. Anyway, moving on to person 2. Next up is StephIsCold, who runs a channel with a little over 200,000 subs, specialising in red pill / MGTOW content. And when I first saw his face, the first thing that really stood out for me was that he has quite a long face. His mid-face isn't very compact, so he has a facial height to width ratio of 1.1 to 1, which is going to appear long and almost a bit horse-faced when we compare to the ideal of 1 to 1. The second significant facial flaw that he has is that his eye orbits are quite large and rounded. They are teardrop shaped, which is going to appear a bit droopy and tired, saggy, and it's an indicator of aging, which isn't going to be as attractive as these rigid, compact, and vertically narrow eye orbits. His third significant flaw is that his maxilla, or his cheekbones, are quite flat. They don't give very good support to his eye area, as compared to this man's, and this is really noticeable in this image here. His face is quite flat, and again, this adds to that tired appearance. For the next one, similar to Julien Blanc, he also has the forehead problem, where his height to width ratio is 2 to 3, as compared to the ideal of 1 to 2. And Steph has a very similar approach to Julien Blanc, where he will often wear hats or bandanas in his videos, which again I'm guessing is to try to cover his large forehead. And in fact, I took a look at his Instagram account, and I would say for every 19 out of 20 posts, he's wearing a bandana or a hat. Fifth flaw is that he has a very large eye to eyebrow length, so there is too much space between his eyes and his eyebrows, and this can make him look intimidated, frightened, or surprised, and overall is just not as seductive as these eyes, which have a very small eye to eyebrow length. Lastly, this isn't related to his face, but he is also 5'6" in height, which puts him a little bit on the manlet side. That's it for the most noticeable flaws. His best features, however, is that his face is still overall very masculine. I think he has good skull proportions, and the beard definitely works for him and enhances his masculinity. I'm not sure if it's a similar situation as with Julien's, where he grew a beard to try to compensate for his lack of jaw definition. I actually couldn't find a photo of Stefan without a beard, so he might have an undeveloped jaw, he might not. But still, the beard works for him, I like it. He keeps it well groomed and it suits him well. Another one of his best features is his mouth area. Not spoken on a huge amount, but these are very much Tyrone tier lips. And his last very attractive feature that I've got down is quite obviously his frame and build. He has just the right combination of muscle mass and low body fat to the point where it's the most attractive. And again, as for looks maxing, if we contrast to Julien Blanc, who wore a lot of baggy clothing, it suits Stefan a lot more wearing this tight fit clothing, which really wraps around his muscles well. Overall, I'd give him a 6 out of 10. It's difficult to give a rating for somebody like this, because in most cases it's not going to be his face for the reason why he gets rejected. If this man gets rejected, it's likely going to be because of his height or JBW. His face is definitely not the issue here. So that's number 2. Let me know of what you think of the points I just made in the comments below. Lastly, moving on to number 3. James Tusk, who runs a channel specialising in day game approaches and has 25,000 subscribers. Now, when I first saw his face, my first impression was it is going to be difficult to find some facial flaws, which is always a good sign, but I have managed to find a couple. The first flaw, which actually does become quite noticeable once you point it out, is that his neck is quite thin. It isn't thick enough for his head, which is going to make him appear weak and fragile. He would be more attractive if he had a thicker neck. Jeremy Meeks is a good example of a man with a strong neck, whose neck is roughly the same width as his face. And other than this flaw, the only other thing that I could actually point out was that his eyebrows are slightly negative tilted, which makes him appear a little bit innocent and worried, and it's just not going to be as seductive as these positively tilted eyebrows. So those are the only 2 flaws that I could find. Other than that, he has a lot of positives going for him. His jawline is definitely one of his best features. It is clearly defined and very forward grown, and it's easy to see that it overshoots the nasal bridge, which adds to that masculinity and makes him appear high testosterone. He also has very good cheekbones. They are high set, prominent and forwardly grown, similar to Julien Blanc's. And as a whole, his facial proportions are just really good. So he has the ideal compact mid-face ratio of 1 to 1, which we've already spoken about. All 3/3 of his face are of equal width, so he doesn't have a narrowing jawline or anything like that. And his face to skull ratio is also the ideal of 1 to 1. So anything higher than that, if you have a large neurocranium, then that can make your head look babyish. He also looks to be in very good health. His skin is a good texture and his hair in particular is very good. It's rich, it's luscious, it's a good thickness, it's a dark, vibrant colour. And for a man in his 30s, it definitely does make him look a lot younger. Lastly, similar to Stefan, his frame is also the ideal shape, where he has large shoulders, broad chest, large arms, thick wrists. And again, he wears clothes that wrap around his body well, to show off more of those features. So after all of that said, it should come as no surprise to you that he is an 8 out of 10 in looks. He is quite comfortably a Chad. And in fact, the only thing that's stopping him from becoming a 9 or a 10 is that he's lacking what I like to call world-breaking features, such as Jeremy Meeks' blue crystal eyes, or Leonardo DiCaprio's twinkle in his smile. He doesn't have any of those, he's just your normal Chad, if that's even a thing. It's no question he's a Chad, and this is clearly shown from the treatment he gets from women in his approaches. Ask yourself this: has a girl ever smiled at you like this, looked at you with this kind of eye contact, with this amount of enthusiasm, within the first 30 seconds of the interaction? And what's even more hilarious is the clip that I'm about to show you. In my video on the 1 to 10 look scale, I spoke about the 3 different types of treatment you'll get if you're a sub 5, normie or chad. And a key point I made for the kind of treatment that only chads will get is that any bad jokes they have will be voluntarily laughed at when talking to a woman. Just have a watch.
Isn't arrogant.
I better walk away then. Isn't arrogant. I don't know.
Tell me that laugh's not fake.
Yeah, we can come see me.
Tell me that joke was hilarious. And this one's my favourite.
Like, because I don't usually do this, right? But you know, if I see someone I like,
And again.
you know, if I see,
And just one more time.
you know, if I see.
These clips were taken from this video, and the interaction only lasted 5 minutes, and the level of interest built up in that amount of time is unbelievable. This is what I was talking about when I say that women will make it easy for chads, so they are more likely to do things like this, voluntarily laughing at pathetic jokes. And just one more point to elaborate even further. I counted the number of times she either adjusted or corrected her hair in that short 5-minute interaction, and she did a total of 6 times in just 5 minutes. And if you're not sure why this detail is relevant, women will often do things like this, like touching their hair, in order to show off their beauty. So again, this is further evidence that he is getting the treatment of a chad. So, these are my 3 ratings for each person rated in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and leave a like on the video if you haven't already, as it helps the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to find out more about the framework that I use to do most of the analysis in this video, then I'd highly recommend you check out my video on the perfect face. I spoke a lot about the eye area in this video, so a link to the video on the perfect eyes will definitely be in the description box below. Lastly, I have also started a Patreon page, so if you're enjoying this consistent weekly Black Pill content, then this is a great way to support the channel. There are currently 3 categories, sub 5 obviously, normie and chad, so it will be greatly appreciated if anyone supports me like this.